In a tale woven with threads of ambition, love, and unforeseen tragedy, Anna and Robert's life unfolds like a vibrant tapestry that draws envy from all who know them. Anna, a pillar of strength and a beacon of success in the business world, faces a life-altering moment that challenges the very foundation of her existence. A devastating accident leaves her bound to a wheelchair, transforming her dynamic with Robert from partner in life to caregiver and dependent. As Anna grapples with her new reality, Robert's resolve is shaken, leading him to make a decision that aligns with his father's cold pragmatism rather than his heart. The story takes us from the peaks of professional triumph to the valleys of personal despair, revealing the true character of those involved. Anna's journey does not end with her abandonment. It is merely the beginning of a profound transformation that questions the essence of resilience and redemption. If you are not subscribed, I recommend you subscribe and activate the bell so you don't miss any videos. Before we dive into this story, please let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Following his father's heartless counsel, the man did the unthinkable. He abandoned his wife, paralyzed and bound to a wheelchair, leaving her alone in a forgotten, desolate town. She had once been the love of his life, but now she was nothing more than a ghost in his past, a shadow he could not bear to confront. A full year later, driven by nothing but greed and the insatiable hunger for wealth, he returned to claim his inheritance, believing that time would have erased all traces of his betrayal. But as he stepped back into that remote place, the blood drained from his face, leaving him pale and trembling. What he found shook him to his very core, a horrific reality he never could have anticipated. Once upon a time, Anna and Robert seemed to have everything. Their life together was one of success, power, and admiration, a partnership that was the envy of everyone around them. Anna was a brilliant, fiercely determined woman who had built an empire from the ground up. She owned a flourishing chain of fashion boutiques, a testament to her tireless work ethic, her sharp intellect, and her unwavering vision. People admired her, not just for her achievements, but for the strength she exuded. Robert, her husband, was a vital part of her success, handling the managerial aspects of the business and helping to nurture their shared dream. Together, they were a force of nature, unstoppable, unshakable, a perfect team in both business and life. But fate, with its cruel sense of irony, would soon tear their world apart. One seemingly ordinary day, like so many before it, Anna woke early with excitement and purpose. She had a crucial meeting with potential investors that could catapult her business to even greater heights. The sun was bright in the sky, casting a warm glow on everything it touched. The air was crisp, filled with the promise of a new beginning. Anna, always organized and punctual, dressed in her finest suit, her mind laser-focused on the day ahead. She slipped into her luxurious new sedan, a gleaming symbol of her hard-earned success, and drove off with confidence. The highway stretched out before her, clear and calm, much like her thoughts as she mentally rehearsed her presentation. But as she reached out to adjust the radio, hoping to fill the silence with her favorite station, everything changed in an instant. A truck, massive and unforgiving, was barreling toward her, the driver having succumbed to exhaustion after hours of relentless driving. In a split second, the world shattered. The truck crossed the median, veering directly into her path. Desperately, Anna swerved to avoid the collision, but fate was not on her side. Her car lost control, skidding violently before flipping over and over, the screeching of metal and shattering glass filling the air. Time seemed to stretch endlessly as the car tumbled, her body tossed helplessly inside the wreckage. When it finally came to rest, crumpled and lifeless in a ditch, the silence was deafening. Anna lay trapped, broken, her body shattered, pain coursed through her, an unbearable agony that seemed to pierce her very soul. Barely conscious, her vision blurred, and her thoughts began to fade. She felt herself slipping away as the first witnesses arrived, frantic and terrified, calling for help. The paramedics arrived quickly, their faces grim as they worked to extract her from the mangled remains of her once pristine car. They rushed her to the hospital, where the battle for her life began in earnest. Hours passed as surgeons worked tirelessly, but the news was devastating. Anna's spine had been irreparably damaged. The woman who had once stood tall, commanding boardrooms and overseeing her empire, was now paralyzed from the waist down, condemned to a life in a wheelchair. If you're still tuned into this video and find the story inspiring, drop a 1 in the comments to let me know you're still with me. For Robert, the news was nothing short of cataclysmic. He had been waiting in the hospital's sterile waiting room, every second a slow torment. When the doctor approached, Robert's heart raced, hoping against hope that the news wouldn't be as terrible as he feared. But when the words finally left the doctor's lips, It felt as if the world collapsed around him. The life he had known, the life they had built together, was unraveling before his eyes. The future they had envisioned, a future of success, mobility, and shared triumph, was now a cruel mirage. All that remained was the cold reality of Anna's condition and the crushing weight of what it meant for both of them. When Anna finally awoke, groggy from the medication and surgery, she was faced with an unbearable truth. The woman who had once been strong, independent, and full of life was now utterly dependent on others for even the most basic tasks. Her freedom, her autonomy had been stripped away in a single moment of tragedy. And yet, despite the physical pain, it was the emotional devastation that cut the deepest. She could no longer be the woman she once was, the leader, the wife, the entrepreneur. Everything had changed, and as she looked into Robert's eyes, she saw something that terrified her even more than her paralysis. She saw doubt. She saw fear. She saw a man who, beneath the surface, was already retreating. At first, Robert tried to mask his growing disillusionment. He helped with her physical therapy, encouraged her as she struggled through occupational therapy sessions, and made the necessary adjustments to their home to accommodate her new needs. But the strain began to wear on him. Every day he grew more distant, more detached. The spark of love that had once burned so brightly between them was now flickering, barely alive. Anna noticed it too. She could feel him slipping away, and it broke her heart. Despite her suffering, she tried to remain optimistic, clinging to the hope that they could rebuild their lives together. But as the days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months, the distance between them grew wider. Robert, unable to cope with the overwhelming responsibility and burden of caring for Anna, began to look for a way out. He confided in his father, a man with a cold and cynical view of the world. His father, never one to show much compassion, whispered insidious thoughts into Robert's ear. He convinced him that Anna was a lost cause, that she would never be the woman she once was, and that staying with her would only drag him down. Slowly, Robert's heart hardened. The idea of leaving her behind, of abandoning the woman who had once been his partner in every sense of the word, became less unthinkable and more tempting. The allure of her inheritance, the promise of a life free from the burdens of her condition, was too great to ignore. And so one day Robert made his decision. Without a word of warning, he left her. He drove her to a remote town, far from their home, far from anyone who could help her, and left her there alone, helpless, abandoned. He did not look back as he drove away, his mind consumed with the thought of the inheritance he would one day claim. The guilt gnawed at him, but he buried it deep within, convincing himself that he had done what he had to do. A year later, confident that he could now claim his prize, Robert returned. But what awaited him was not the fortune he had so greedily anticipated. As he walked through the town, his heart began to race, a cold sweat forming on his brow. The silence was oppressive, the air thick with tension. When he finally reached the place where he had left Anna, his blood ran cold, his face drained of color, and a sense of dread washed over him. What he found was beyond anything he could have imagined, a fate more terrible than he ever thought possible. Days turned into weeks, and weeks stretched into long, agonizing months. Each day, Annie faced the painful reality of her new life in a wheelchair. She spent hours in therapy, fighting to regain even the smallest sense of independence. Her once vibrant and self-sufficient world now reduced to carefully planned routines. Her body had become a prison, but her spirit refused to fully yield. Annie worked tirelessly with therapists, learning how to adapt to her new condition, each task a monumental effort. She wanted to prove to herself and Robert that she could still be the woman she once was, even though deep down she knew things would never be the same. Meanwhile, Robert was slipping further and further away, both emotionally and physically. He spent more time outside the house, working late or disappearing without explanation, avoiding the weight of Annie's situation and the strain it was putting on their marriage. Conversations between them grew shallow, their once deep connection now eroded by silence and avoidance. Tension lingered in the air, heavy and suffocating, as frustration bubbled just beneath the surface of their home. The love that had once bound them felt like a distant memory, buried under the suffocating burden of Annie's condition and Robert's growing resentment. One evening, after yet another bitter argument about the future, a future that now seemed bleak and uncertain, Robert stormed out of the house, heart pounding with a mix of anger, guilt, and confusion. He found himself driving to the only person he thought might offer him some clarity, his father, Don Ignacio, a retired businessman. Don Ignacio was notorious for his cold, pragmatic approach to life, rarely letting emotion dictate his decisions. Robert hoped for some semblance of comfort, a guiding hand to help him navigate the overwhelming turmoil he found himself in. When he arrived at his father's estate, the stark contrast between their lives was immediately apparent. Don Ignacio's office, a grand, imposing space filled with the spoils of a lifetime of calculated success, was a shrine to his ruthlessness in business and life. The walls were adorned with awards, and the polished surfaces gleamed under soft lighting, reinforcing the image of a man who had never known failure. As Robert sat down, his heart heavy with conflicted emotions, he began to confide in his father. He spoke of Annie's struggles, his mounting frustrations, and the suffocating weight of their collapsing relationship. Don Ignacio listened, his expression unreadable, his cold eyes revealing nothing but indifference. When Robert finally stopped speaking, the silence in the room was thick with tension. Then, in a voice devoid of empathy, Ignacio spoke words that sent a chill down Robert's spine. "Robert, you need to be realistic about your future. Think about yourself for once," Ignacio said, his tone as cold and calculated as ever. "Annie is in a bad situation. She's never going to be the same woman she was. You can't be expected to throw away your life for her." Robert's heart raced as he processed his father's words. "Dad, I love Annie. She's still trying, and I should be there for her. It's what's right." Ignacio's lip curled into a slight sneer. "Love, Robert, love doesn't pay the bills. It doesn't secure your future. Her businesses are falling apart, and she's not in any condition to manage them. You could step in, take control, save yourself from financial ruin while she's being taken care of." Robert felt a sickening knot tighten in his stomach. He had come seeking comfort, but this was not what he had expected. "What are you saying, Dad? Are you seriously suggesting I leave her?" Ignacio leaned forward, his eyes cold and piercing. "Exactly. There's a place I know of, a small town, not too far away. Quiet, secluded, and perfect for someone in her condition. You can ensure she gets the care she needs, but away from here, away from your life. Then you make sure everything is set up legally so that you take control of her assets. Her business, her inheritance, it could all be yours. You'd secure your future. Robert, isn't that what you want?" The words hit Robert like a tidal wave, crashing over him, drowning him in a storm of moral conflict. He wanted to scream, to reject the notion that abandoning the woman he loved, his wife, the woman who had once been his partner in everything, could ever be an option. But deep within, a dark voice whispered the same fears Ignacio had spoken aloud. Could he handle this? Could he spend the rest of his life tethered to the responsibility of caring for someone who might never be whole again? "Dad, that's cruel. She's my wife," Robert said, though his voice wavered, lacking the conviction he had so desperately wanted to convey. "I can't just abandon her." Ignacio's gaze hardened, and his lips curled into a cold, dismissive smirk. "Cruel? Robert, life is cruel. Business is cruel. Do you think the world cares about Annie's situation? Do you think it will wait for you to play the dutiful husband while her empire crumbles to dust? Wake up. You can either let her drag you down, or you can take control. The choice is yours." Robert sat in stunned silence, his mind a storm of conflicting emotions. The guilt gnawed at him, an insidious presence that threatened to consume him whole. But Ignacio's words, harsh and unyielding, had planted a seed of doubt. The pressures of caring for Annie, the never-ending strain on his spirit, weighed heavily on his shoulders, and the thought of securing his financial future, of taking the reins of her business and ensuring his survival, began to cloud his once clear sense of right and wrong. If you're still tuned into this video and find the story inspiring, drop a 2 in the comments to let me know you're still with me. As Robert left his father's mansion that night, his heart was heavy, torn between love and self-preservation. He knew that what Ignacio was suggesting was deeply, unforgivably wrong. Yet the longer he thought about it, the more the idea seemed to wrap itself around his mind, tightening like a vice. Could he abandon her? Could he live with himself if he did? The answer, however unclear, lurked in the shadows of his thoughts, growing stronger with each passing day. Think about it, Robert. This isn't just about you. Annie needs care that you're not equipped to provide. You know deep down that this is the best choice for both of you. Ignacio pressed, his voice smooth, yet unwavering, as if his words were meant to guide Robert toward a decision already made. The weight of his father's cold logic bore down on Robert, suffocating him with a twisted sense of responsibility disguised as reason. As Robert drove away from his father's mansion that night, His thoughts swirled in turmoil. The seed of doubt that Ignacio had planted in his heart began to grow, its roots slowly entangling every part of his conscience. In the days that followed, Robert couldn't escape the gnawing feeling that perhaps Ignacio was right. Every glance at Annie, every frustrated sigh or tearful expression she wore, seemed to push him further away. The arguments between them became more frequent, their once warm conversations now bitter and filled with the quiet despair of a love unraveling. Every time her eyes filled with silent pleas for reassurance, he felt himself harden, his guilt transforming into resentment. Then, the day came when Robert made the decision that would change everything. After a particularly vicious argument, one in which Annie tearfully questioned if he still loved her, Robert decided that Ignacio's suggestion was the only solution. His heart felt heavy, filled with doubt and self-loathing, but his mind, poisoned by his father's manipulations, convinced him it was necessary. Late into the night, he made the arrangements with a nursing home in the isolated town his father had mentioned, his fingers trembling as he finalized the details. The thought of what he was about to do haunted him, but he pushed it down, burying it beneath layers of cold rationalization. He convinced himself this was for Annie's good, for both of them. That sleepless night was a blur of guilt and dread. He lay beside Annie, watching her sleep, her face softened by exhaustion and pain. His mind was a battlefield between the memories of the confident, ambitious woman she once was and the vulnerable, dependent person she had become. By dawn, Robert could no longer lie still, the weight of his decision too much to bear. He quietly got up and packed for the journey, every action a reminder of the terrible betrayal he was about to commit. When Annie awoke, Robert had already prepared everything. "We're going on a trip," he told her, his voice flat and hollow. Annie, still trusting in the man she loved, believed his words, not suspecting the grim reality of what awaited her. She smiled faintly, believing perhaps that this journey was for her well-being, that Robert had found a place for her to heal. The car ride was quiet, the weight of unspoken words filling the space between them. Robert's hands gripped the steering wheel tighter with each passing mile, his stomach churning with a mix of guilt and dread. When they finally arrived at the small, secluded nursing home, the reality of what was happening crashed down on Annie like a tidal wave. The moment Robert led her through the doors, she sensed the truth. This wasn't a temporary arrangement, and this wasn't for her benefit. Panic welled up in her chest as she looked into his eyes, searching for an explanation. But Robert, unable to face her heartbreak, avoided her gaze. He mumbled empty reassurances, but his words were hollow. The betrayal was too deep to be masked by platitudes. As he turned and walked away, leaving Annie behind in that small, unfamiliar town, her eyes once so full of trust filled with an overwhelming sense of betrayal. She watched the car fade into the distance, her heart shattering with each passing second. The man she had shared her life with, the man she had trusted to be by her side in sickness and in health, had abandoned her when she needed him the most. For Robert, the drive back to the city was a torment. His father's voice echoed in his mind, reassuring him that he had made the right decision. But no matter how hard he tried to bury the guilt, it gnawed at him like a wound that wouldn't heal. He threw himself into his work, hoping that the distractions of business would drown out the pain. But the emptiness only grew, a hollow reminder of the life he had left behind. His once secure sense of self was now fragile, breaking apart under the weight of what he had done. Back at the nursing home, Annie's world crumbled. The isolation of the small town, the sterile halls of the nursing home, and the strangers around her made every moment feel like an endless nightmare. The kind-hearted staff tried to provide comfort, but they couldn't fill the void left by Robert's absence. One caregiver, Marta, a compassionate woman with a gentle smile, made it her mission to help Annie adjust. She offered words of encouragement and small acts of kindness, but nothing could ease the deep ache of abandonment that haunted Annie. Every night she lay in her small room, the silence suffocating, as her mind replayed the moment Robert left her behind. News of Annie's fate soon reached her best friend, Rebecca. Fiercely loyal and protective, Rebecca wasted no time. Upon hearing what had happened, she dropped everything and traveled to the remote town, determined to be there for her friend. When Rebecca arrived at the nursing home and saw Annie, her heart broke. The confident, vibrant woman she had once known was now a shadow of herself, her eyes dull and her spirit crushed. Seeing Rebecca, Annie collapsed into tears, and the two embraced, their shared grief filling the space where words had failed. "I'm here, Annie. You're not alone in this. I won't let you go through this by yourself," Rebecca whispered, her voice steady and filled with determination. She promised Annie that no matter what, she would stand by her side and help her rebuild her life. Slowly, with Rebecca's support, Annie began to find small glimpses of hope. Rebecca, always the optimist, encouraged Annie to venture out of the nursing home and explore the town to rediscover some semblance of independence. Though Annie was reluctant at first, the warmth of her friend's love began to melt the ice that had formed around her heart. One morning, Rebecca insisted that they go to the local grocery store together, hoping the outing would lift Annie's spirits. Annie, still weighed down by the betrayal and the enormity of her new reality, hesitated, but Rebecca's persistence finally won out. "You need to feel the world again, Annie. Don't let Robert or this situation keep you from living. Even if it's just for a few minutes, let's get out of here," Rebecca said with a determined smile. At the small, cozy grocery store, the familiar sounds of daily life filled the air, the rustling of bags, the quiet hum of conversation. For the first time in what felt like forever, Annie allowed herself to breathe, to feel something other than sorrow. As she moved through the aisles in her wheelchair, guided by Rebecca's encouragement, she began to see that maybe, just maybe, there was a future for her beyond the pain. Though her heart was still heavy, Annie knew that as long as she had people like Rebecca right by her side, she could face whatever came next. Suddenly, a shopping cart bumped gently into Annie's wheelchair, jolting her from her thoughts. Startled, she looked up to see a man standing before her, his expression one of genuine surprise and embarrassment. His warm eyes quickly locked onto hers, and he raised his hands apologetically. "Oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't see you there," he said, his voice tinged with embarrassment, but there was a softness to it that made his apology feel sincere. Annie, her heart still fragile but not wanting to make a big deal out of the situation, offered a faint smile. "Don't worry, I'm fine," she replied, her voice steady, though it carried the weight of recent pain and uncertainty. The man, visibly relieved but still feeling bad for the mishap, gave a sheepish grin. "I'm Charles," he introduced himself, shifting his weight slightly, as though unsure whether to leave or linger. "Are you new in town? I haven't seen you around before." There was a moment's hesitation before Annie nodded, her eyes reflecting both sadness and an undercurrent of hope she had yet to fully recognize. "Yes, I just arrived not too long ago." Charles, sensing something deeper in her tone, softened further, his eyes growing more empathetic. "Well, welcome. If you ever need any help or just want to get to know the place a bit better, I'd be more than happy to show you around. It's a small town, but it's got a lot of heart." Annie smiled faintly again, though this time with a touch more warmth, appreciating the kindness of the stranger. Rebecca, who had been standing nearby, observing the interaction with a knowing smile, chimed in. "I think it's a wonderful idea, Annie. Charles could show you the best spots in town. It might be good to get a little fresh air." Annie looked at Rebecca, then back at Charles, who stood patiently, waiting for her response. Slowly, as if testing the waters of her hope, she nodded. "Okay, that sounds nice." They exchanged phone numbers, agreeing to meet the next day for the tour. As Annie left the grocery store, her heart felt just a little lighter. That night, for the first time in a long time, she allowed herself to feel the small flicker of possibility. Though her life had taken such a devastating turn, maybe this strange new chapter in a quiet, unfamiliar town could hold something meaningful, something hopeful. The morning sunlight filtered through the thin curtains of Annie's modest room at the nursing home, casting soft golden hues across the floor. For the first time in weeks, she felt a small shift within her. The usual heaviness she carried each morning wasn't as suffocating. The chirping birds outside her window seemed to carry a tune of promise, and the prospect of spending time with Charles filled her with a tentative excitement she hadn't felt since arriving in this town. Rebecca, always buzzing with energy and optimism, arrived early to help her friend prepare for the day. "Today's special, Annie. We're going to make you feel amazing," Rebecca said, rifling through Annie's closet, searching for the perfect outfit. Annie chuckled softly, feeling a surge of gratitude for Rebecca's constant presence. "I'm not sure how amazing I'm going to feel, but I'll try," she said, allowing her friend to pick out a comfortable yet flattering outfit. As she dressed, Annie caught her reflection in the mirror, a reflection she hardly recognized anymore. But today there was something different in her eyes, a glimmer that had been missing for so long. When Charles arrived at the nursing home to pick her up, his casual but neatly dressed appearance and genuine smile instantly put her at ease. His presence was unhurried, warm, and reassuring. Ready to explore, he asked, his voice light but inviting. Annie nodded, her nerves swirling with a mix of excitement and apprehension. "Yes, I think I am," she replied, feeling the subtle rush of stepping into the unknown. Charles gently pushed Annie's wheelchair as they ventured through the quaint town, his pace easy and thoughtful, ensuring she felt comfortable. They began at the town's main square, a charming spot filled with small local shops and cafes that radiated coziness. Charles enthusiastically pointed out each spot, his stories animated and full of affection for the town. "See that bakery over there? That's Doc Clara's. She's been baking the best cakes in the region for decades. Everyone swears by her pies," Charles said, gesturing toward a little bakery with pastel-colored shutters and a welcoming atmosphere. "And over here," he pointed further down the road, "is the park. Families gather there every weekend. It's a great place to relax and take in the fresh air." Annie listened closely, taking in the sights and the energy of the town. Charles's enthusiasm was contagious, and as she watched the townsfolk greet each other with warmth and familiarity, she began to feel something she hadn't felt in a long time, a sense of belonging. The town, though small and modest, was alive with kindness and simplicity, something Annie had sorely missed in the hustle of her former life. After some time, they made their way to the park Charles had mentioned. Under the shade of a grand oak tree, they found a bench, and Charles sat beside her. "This is my favorite spot," he admitted with a soft smile, his eyes gazing out at the serene landscape. "It's where I come to think, reflect, clear my head." Annie looked at him, touched by his honesty, and for a brief moment she allowed herself to be vulnerable. "I never imagined my life would turn out this way," she began, her voice tinged with the weight of everything she had lost. "Just a few months ago, I was running my own company, making plans for the future. And now, I'm here trying to figure out how to start over." Charles met her gaze, his eyes filled with genuine empathy. "I can't imagine how hard it must have been, but you know, life has a way of surprising us," he said softly. "Sometimes the most unexpected paths lead us to places we never thought we'd find. Even in the darkest times, there's always some chance to grow, to heal, and to find a new kind of happiness." Annie's heart softened at his words. Though her journey was far from over and the pain of Robert's betrayal still lingered, she began to see that maybe, just maybe, there was a way forward. Sitting there, under the oak tree, with the soft breeze rustling the leaves and the warmth of the sun on her skin, Annie felt the beginnings of something new, a flicker of hope, faint but unmistakable. Annie smiled warmly, touched by Charles's words. "You're right. I'm starting to see that maybe this is a new beginning for me. It's not what I expected, but I think I'm ready to embrace it." After spending a few more moments in the park, Charles gently wheeled her back to the nursing home. Before they said goodbye, Charles handed her a small, neatly wrapped gift, a book of poems. "These have always brought me comfort during tough times," he explained, his voice soft but sincere. "I hope they can bring you some peace as well." Annie accepted the book, deeply moved by his thoughtfulness. "Thank you, Charles. That's incredibly kind of you," she said, her heart full, not just from the gesture but from the growing friendship between them. That night, as she sat in her room, the nursing home quiet and still, she opened the book. As she read the gentle verses, something within her began to stir. The words wrapped around her heart like a soothing balm, and for the first time in months, she felt the sharp edges of her pain begin to soften, if only just a little. Rebecca, who had watched Annie's progress with a mixture of pride and relief, saw her friend blossoming before her eyes. "You're getting stronger, Annie. I'm so proud of you," Rebecca often said, her voice brimming with encouragement. The following days were filled with small but meaningful victories. With Rebecca by her side, Annie began venturing out more, tentatively rejoining the rhythm of the town's daily life. Together they visited Clara's bakery, indulging in slices of cake, savoring the sweetness of each bite as a reminder of life's small joys. They had coffee at the cafe in the town square, the rich aroma of freshly brewed espresso mingling with the hum of laughter and conversation. And every evening they strolled through the park, where the setting sun bathed the world in a golden glow, offering Annie moments of quiet reflection. If you're still tuned into this video and find the story inspiring, drop a 3 in the comments to let me know you're still with me. Though Annie still had days where the weight of her circumstances felt unbearable, those difficult moments were now punctuated by glimmers of hope and belonging. She began to feel that maybe she could carve out a new life for herself in this quiet, welcoming town. One afternoon, as they sat on their usual bench in the park, Rebecca noticed that Annie seemed particularly deep in thought. "What's on your mind, Annie?" Rebecca asked gently, her hand resting lightly on her friend's shoulder. Annie turned to her, her eyes filled with both gratitude and wonder. "I was just thinking about how lucky I am to have you, Rebecca. I don't know how I would have made it through any of this without you." Rebecca's eyes softened, and she took Annie's hand. "We've been friends forever, Annie. You're like a sister to me, and I'll always be here for you. No matter what happens, you'll never have to face it alone." Annie smiled, feeling the warmth of Rebecca's unwavering friendship flood her heart. At that moment, she realized that, despite everything, she still had people who loved and cared for her. The bond between them grew stronger with each passing day, and Rebecca became the foundation on which Annie rebuilt her life. Together, they made plans for the future, imagining a world where Annie could thrive again, despite the challenges she faced. The next morning, Annie woke up with a new sense of anticipation. The promise of spending time with Charles brought with it a spark of excitement that she hadn't felt in so long. As Rebecca helped her get ready, she noticed the shift in her friend's demeanor. There was a lightness in Annie's movements, a quiet optimism that had been missing for so long. "Today's going to be a good day for you," Annie Rebecca said with a smile. "Enjoy it. You deserve this." Charles arrived promptly, his energy and radiant smile contagious. "Good morning, Annie. Ready for another adventure?" he asked cheerfully as he wheeled her out toward the town's sun-drenched streets. Annie nodded, her nerves replaced with growing confidence. "Yes, I'm ready," she replied, feeling more certain with each step, more like herself again. Their first stop was the town's library, a quaint and cozy space filled with the familiar scent of aged books and the soft rustling of pages. Charles led Annie through the quiet aisles, pointing out different sections and recommending his favorite authors. As they explored, Annie felt a sense of calm wash over her. The library, with its worn wooden shelves and gentle atmosphere, felt like a sanctuary. Charles, ever curious, asked, "Did you get a chance to read the poems I gave you?" Annie smiled and nodded. "I've read a few pages. They're beautiful. I can see why they bring you comfort." Charles's expression softened. Poetry has a way of touching the heart in ways nothing else can. "I'm glad they've helped." After spending time browsing the library, they headed to a small cafe in the town square, where they sat at an outdoor table, basking in the late morning sun. The air was warm and carried the distant sound of children playing, while the scent of freshly brewed coffee filled the space between them. As they sipped their drinks, Annie began to open up about her past, her life before the accident, the pride she had in her business, and the long hours she had spent building her empire. For the first time, she spoke openly about the joy she had once felt in watching her company grow, and the deep sense of loss that came with having to let it all go. "You've accomplished so much, Annie. What you've been through is unimaginable, but don't let this accident define you," Charles said, his voice full of conviction. "You're still the strong, capable person who built that company, and you have so much more to offer." Annie's heart swelled with gratitude. "Thank you, Charles. Your words mean more to me than you know." With each outing, the connection between Annie and Charles deepened. His kindness and unwavering belief in her abilities gave Annie the courage to reimagine her future. He encouraged her to get involved with the community, and little by little, she began participating in local events, forging new relationships and rediscovering her strength. Though her journey was far from over, Annie was no longer just surviving, she was beginning to truly live again. And in this unexpected town, with Charles and Rebecca by her side, she found that there were still countless opportunities for happiness, growth, and love. One sunny afternoon, as Charles and Annie strolled through the park, a casual conversation turned into an idea that would change the course of Annie's life forever. Charles, his voice full of thoughtfulness, said, "Annie, you've spoken so much about your passion for helping others. Have you ever considered starting something here in town? Maybe a project that could benefit a lot of people?" Annie looked at him, her brow furrowing as she pondered the suggestion. "I've never thought about it, but I like the sound of that. What kind of project do you have in mind?" she asked, intrigued by the possibilities. Charles's eyes lit up with enthusiasm, the idea seemingly growing more vivid as he spoke. "I've been thinking about a rehabilitation center. This town doesn't have anything like that, and I know how much it could help people recovering from life-altering injuries. With your experience and leadership, I'm sure you could make it a reality." The idea struck Annie deeply, resonating with a part of her that had been searching for a new purpose. She had once been a successful businesswoman, and now, the thought of using her skills to create something meaningful for others filled her with renewed hope. "Charles, that's an incredible idea. A rehabilitation center would not only be a way for me to give back, but it would also allow me to help people who are going through the same struggles I've faced. I think this could be exactly what I need." Charles gently took her hand, his admiration for her clear in his gaze. "I know you can do this, Annie. And you won't be doing it alone. I'll be with you every step of the way, and so will Rebecca. We'll make this happen together." The excitement of the new project breathed life into Annie. With Charles's support and Rebecca's unwavering friendship, she threw herself into planning the rehabilitation center. The idea of helping others heal just as she had been healing ignited a fire within her. Her business experience gave her the tools she needed, and despite the new challenges, her determination remained steadfast. The trio began their work by researching rehabilitation centers in other towns, seeking to understand the resources and services they would need to provide. Days were spent in the local library, poring over articles, books, and online resources. They even reached out to professionals in the field, gathering valuable advice and expertise. Charles, with his background in nursing, contributed crucial knowledge about the medical and therapeutic needs of patients. She became a frequent visitor at town hall, securing permits and making connections with local officials. One of those officials, Michael, the town's mayor, quickly became a key supporter of the project. During a meeting with Rebecca, he expressed his enthusiasm. "This rehabilitation center will be a blessing for our community. I'll ensure that the town hall provides all the support you need to make this a reality," he said, his tone filled with sincerity. With the mayor's backing, the project gained momentum. Annie and Charles found an old, unused building on the outskirts of town that would be perfect for the center. It needed significant renovations, but with the help of volunteers from the community, they began transforming the space. The sense of unity in the town was overwhelming. Carpenters volunteered to build ramps and adapt bathrooms, local businesses donated furniture, and medical equipment came pouring in from surrounding towns. The spirit of the community moved Annie deeply, reminding her that people were willing to come together for a greater cause. One day, as they stood outside the building, watching the progress unfold, Annie turned to Charles. "It's incredible to see everyone working together like this," she said, her voice filled with awe. "It makes me feel like this is truly where I belong." Charles smiled, a look of quiet pride in his eyes. "This center isn't just going to help others, Annie. It's giving you a sense of purpose again. I'm so glad to be part of this journey with you." As the renovations continued, Annie spent her days meticulously planning the programs and services that the rehabilitation center would offer. She made sure that the center would provide not only physical and occupational therapy, but also psychological support and recreational activities to foster socialization and emotional healing. Annie was determined to create a holistic environment where patients could heal in mind, body, and spirit. Finally, after months of hard work, the inauguration day arrived. The entire town gathered to celebrate the grand opening of the Hope Rehabilitation Center. There was an air of excitement and pride as people admired the transformation of the building and the realization of Annie's vision. Charles, Rebecca, and Annie stood together at the entrance, cutting the ribbon with smiles of triumph and tears of joy. It was a moment that none of them would ever forget. During the opening ceremony, Annie stood before the crowd, her heart full as she prepared to give her speech. Her voice, filled with emotion, echoed through the quiet crowd. "This center is not just a building, it's a testament to the power of love, collaboration, and hope. Every one of you has helped make this dream a reality. Together, we've created a space where people can come to heal, to find strength, and to rediscover themselves. I can't thank you enough for believing in this vision." As she finished her speech, the crowd erupted into applause. There were tears in many eyes, including Annie's, as the overwhelming support of the community washed over her. Charles stood beside her, his heart swelling with pride, while Rebecca hugged her tightly. They had done it together. They had built something truly meaningful. The Hope Rehabilitation Center quickly became a beacon in the town, a place where people came to find healing, not only for their bodies but for their spirits as well. For Annie, it was more than just a project. It was the path to reclaiming her purpose, rediscovering her strength, and building a life filled with new meaning. With the love and support of Charles, Rebecca, and the community, Annie had not only transformed her life but the lives of countless others. The first day of operations at the Hope Rehabilitation Center was a resounding success, marking the beginning of a transformative journey for both the patients and the community. Patients of all ages, some traveling from nearby towns, began arriving, seeking treatment support and a second chance at life. Annie, Charles, and Rebecca made sure that every individual who crossed the threshold of the center was greeted with warmth, compassion, and a commitment to their well-being. As days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, the center became a beacon of hope, its name resonating deeply with those who entered its doors. Annie fully immersed herself in managing the center, overseeing operations, and providing emotional support to patients. Despite the exhausting demands of her role, she remained dedicated to her physical rehabilitation, attending daily therapy sessions with an unyielding determination to regain as much mobility as possible. Her sessions were grueling, often pushing her to her limits, but Annie never wavered. She knew she was fighting not just for herself, but for every patient who looked up to her as a symbol of perseverance. One morning, during a particularly intense session with her physical therapist, Javier, something extraordinary happened. Annie had been following her usual exercise routine, with Javier guiding her through each movement. As they worked on her legs, Annie felt a faint tingling sensation in her right leg, something she hadn't felt in a long time. "Wait," she said, her voice catching as she froze in place, her breath held in anticipation. "I think I can feel something in my leg." Javier, startled but intrigued, immediately stopped and began testing her sensitivity. "Annie, can you feel this?" he asked gently, pressing different areas of her legs. Annie closed her eyes, focusing all her attention on the sensation she was feeling. "Yes," she whispered, her voice filled with disbelief. "It's faint, but I can feel it." Javier's face broke into a wide smile. "Annie, this is incredible. This is a significant breakthrough." His excitement mirrored hers as he realized the gravity of the moment. Word of Annie's progress spread quickly throughout the center, filling everyone with hope and excitement. Rebecca and Charles were among the first to rush to her side, their faces beaming with joy. "Annie, this is fantastic," Rebecca exclaimed, throwing her arms around her friend. "I knew you could do it." Charles, his pride evident in his smile, took her hand. "This is just the beginning. Annie, we'll keep working hard, and I know you'll continue to amaze us." With renewed vigor, Annie intensified her rehabilitation sessions. The sensation in her right leg gradually became stronger, and soon after a faint tingling began to emerge in her left leg as well. Each day she pushed her limits, fueled by the possibility of further progress. One day, during a particularly challenging session, Javier presented her with a new goal. "Annie, today I want you to focus on moving your right leg without my help. It's going to be tough, but I know you can do it." Annie wiped the sweat from her brow, her muscles tensed with determination. She closed her eyes, visualizing the movement in her mind, willing her body to respond. For several agonizing moments, nothing happened. The room was still, save for the soft sound of her breathing. Then, ever so slightly, her right leg moved. It was just a few centimeters, but it was enough. Annie's eyes flew open, her heart pounding with disbelief and joy. "I did it. I moved my leg." Tears streamed down her face as Javier beamed at her. "You did it, Annie. This is a huge step forward. I'm so proud of you." Charles, who had been watching the session, rushed to her side, his voice thick with emotion. "Annie, this is incredible. I knew you could do it." He pulled her into a tight embrace, both of them overcome with happiness. Annie's breakthrough became a source of inspiration for everyone at the center. Her story spread, lifting the spirits of patients and staff alike. She became a living example of what could be achieved with perseverance, hope, and support. Her determination fueled the collective energy at the Hope Rehabilitation Center, and patients who had once felt hopeless now believed in the possibility of their recovery. As Annie's physical rehabilitation progressed, she also turned her attention to her emotional and mental well-being. Meditation, reading, and the comforting presence of Charles and Rebecca became a regular part of her routine, providing her with the inner strength to face the challenges ahead. These moments of peace and reflection were vital, helping her stay grounded amid the intense demands of the center and her recovery. In the midst of all this, the bond between Annie and Charles deepened. What had started as a friendship born out of mutual empathy and shared goals had grown into something far more profound. Their time together, whether working at the center or enjoying quiet moments in the park, became the foundation of a relationship filled with trust, respect, and affection. If you're still tuned into this video and find the story inspiring, drop a 4 in the comments to let me know you're still with me. One night, after a particularly long and fulfilling day at the center, Charles invited Annie for a walk in the park. The moon hung high in the sky, casting a soft glow over the landscape, and the stars twinkled like distant promises. They sat on their favorite bench under the oak tree, the world around them peaceful and still. Annie looked up at the stars, her heart full. "Charles," she began softly, turning to face him, "I want to thank you for everything you've done for me." I don't know where I'd be without your support." Charles smiled, his hand gently covering hers. "Annie, it's been my honor to be by your side, watching you grow, overcome so much, and inspire so many people. It's been the most incredible experience of my life. You're an extraordinary woman, and I'm grateful to be a part of your journey." Annie's heart swelled with warmth as she looked into Charles's eyes, the depth of her feelings becoming undeniable. "Charles, I think I love you," she whispered, her voice barely audible but filled with sincerity. Charles's breath caught in his throat as he looked at her, his heart pounding. "Annie, I love you too. From the moment I met you, I knew there was something special about you. You've shown me what strength and love mean." They embraced, their hearts beating in unison as they found solace in each other under the moonlit sky. In that moment, they both knew that despite the many obstacles they had faced, they had found something truly beautiful and lasting together. Meanwhile, the Hope Rehabilitation Center continued to flourish. Patients arrived in growing numbers, and with each passing day, the center became a place where miracles seemed possible. Annie, Charles, and Rebecca remained at the heart of the operation, tirelessly working to ensure that every patient received the care and support they deserved. Their shared vision had become a reality, and through it all, Annie had not only found her purpose again, but had also discovered the power of love, friendship, and community. Together, they knew they could face whatever the future held, confident in the strength they had built and the lives they were changing every day. The town's community had always rallied behind the Hope Rehabilitation Center, and with each new phase of growth, the center became a true symbol of hope, resilience, and the power of overcoming obstacles. One day, while Annie was busy in her office reviewing documents, her phone rang, cutting through the hum of daily activity. She answered, expecting a routine call, but instead, a warm voice introduced themselves as a representative from a prestigious foundation. "Miss Annie, we've been following the incredible work you've done at the Hope Rehabilitation Center, and we're impressed," the representative said. "We'd like to offer a significant donation to expand your programs and services." Annie was speechless for a moment, overwhelmed by the generosity and the recognition of their efforts. A wave of gratitude and emotion washed over her. "That would be incredible. We're so grateful for your support. This will allow us to help even more people in our community." With this unexpected blessing, Annie, Charles, and Rebecca began to plan the expansion of the center. They worked meticulously on creating new programs, hiring more staff, and upgrading the facilities to better serve their patients. The donation marked a turning point. What had started as a small rehabilitation center was now on the path to becoming a full-fledged institution that would transform even more lives. The center was buzzing with excitement as construction for the new wing began. Patients, staff, and volunteers all felt a renewed sense of purpose. Annie, as always, led by example. Despite the physical and emotional challenges, she remained dedicated to her rehabilitation, refusing to lose sight of her personal goals. One morning, during one of her physiotherapy sessions, Javier had a new challenge for her. "Annie, today I want you to try walking without the parallel bars. We'll use a walker to give you more freedom. Are you ready?" Annie felt a familiar surge of determination. "I'm ready, Javier. Let's do it." With the walker in front of her and Javier close by for support, Annie steadied herself. She took a deep breath, concentrating on each movement. Slowly, she moved her right leg forward, feeling the weight of her body shift in a way she hadn't experienced in so long. The physical effort was immense, but the feeling of freedom was unlike anything else. Her left leg followed, and she kept moving step by step. Around her, people in the center began to notice and gathered to watch, their words of encouragement lifting her spirits. Charles and Rebecca stood nearby, tears of joy in their eyes as they cheered her on. "You've got this," Annie Rebecca shouted, her voice full of emotion. Annie's heart swelled with pride as she continued to move, each step a testament to her unwavering will. By the time she reached the end of the path, she was exhausted but radiant. "I did it," she exclaimed, tears streaming down her face. "I did it." Charles rushed to her, hugging her tightly. "Annie, you're amazing. There's no limit to what you can achieve." The entire room erupted into applause, patients and staff alike celebrating Annie's incredible milestone. It was a victory not just for Annie, but for everyone at the center, a living reminder that with perseverance and support, anything is possible. As Annie continued to make strides in her physical recovery, she became even more committed to helping others achieve their breakthroughs. She expanded the center's services to include emotional support, organizing group therapy sessions where patients could share their experiences and lift each other. These sessions became a cornerstone of the center's success, fostering a strong sense of community and mutual encouragement. Meanwhile, the expansion project was in full swing. Annie, Charles, and Rebecca met regularly to plan the details. One of their priorities was to create a wing dedicated to children's rehabilitation, a service that had long been needed in the area. "There are so many children who could benefit from this," Annie said during one meeting. "With this new wing, we can give them the care they need to grow and thrive." Charles, always focused on the medical aspect, chimed in. "I've been reading about aquatic therapy. It's incredibly effective for certain conditions. I think we should include a therapeutic pool." Rebecca nodded enthusiastically. "Michael's already mentioned he'd support us with permits for that. I'll talk to the city council about the logistics." With a clear plan in mind, it began working on the expansion designs and obtaining the necessary permits. The community once again rallied behind the project, offering donations, time, and resources. Michael, the mayor, played a crucial role in facilitating the construction, ensuring that the project stayed on track and that the town remained informed. Construction days were filled with the sound of hammering and drilling, but they were also filled with hope. Each brick laid symbolized the future of the Hope Rehabilitation Center, a future that promised to serve even more people in need. Annie was deeply involved in every aspect, overseeing construction, speaking with workers, and ensuring that the center's vision came to life. Her enthusiasm never faltered. She knew how many lives would be transformed by the center's expansion. Charles, too, was hard at work. He reached out to specialists in aquatic therapy, ensuring that the new program would offer top-tier care. "Annie, I've found a specialist who's willing to train our staff. This will make our program one of the best in the region," he said one day. Annie smiled, deeply appreciative. "That's amazing, Charles. With their help, we'll be able to offer something truly life-changing." Rebecca continued promoting the center, organizing community events and fundraising campaigns. "The response has been incredible," she said one afternoon. "Everyone wants to contribute in some way." Finally, the day of the new wing's inauguration arrived. The community gathered once again, their excitement palpable. The new space was state-of-the-art, designed with the patient's needs in mind. It was equipped with everything necessary to provide high-quality care, including the much-anticipated therapeutic pool. Annie gave a heartfelt speech during the ceremony, her voice filled with gratitude and hope. "Today we celebrate not just the expansion of our center, but the spirit of collaboration and community that made this possible. Thank you all for your unwavering support. Together, we are creating a better future for everyone." The applause that followed was thunderous. Charles, Rebecca, and Michael also took the stage, expressing their pride in the project and their excitement for the future. The inauguration was a resounding success, and the center soon began receiving new patients, especially children who benefited from the specialized rehabilitation programs. As Annie sat in her office after the ceremony, looking out at the bustling activity of the center, she felt an overwhelming sense of satisfaction. They had come so far since the day she had arrived in the small town, and each obstacle they had faced had only made them stronger. Charles entered the room, his smile as warm as ever. "Annie, the new wing is already making an impact. We've received so much gratitude from the families today," he said, his voice filled with pride. Annie stood and hugged him. "Charles, this is only the beginning. We've achieved so much together, and I'm excited to see what's next." With the expansion of the Hope Rehabilitation Center, Annie, Charles, Rebecca, and Michael continued to work tirelessly, ensuring that it remained a beacon of light and hope. Each new day brought new challenges, but with the strength of their community and the spirit of perseverance, they knew they could face anything. With the new wing of the Hope Rehabilitation Center now fully functional, the dedicated team faced a fresh wave of challenges. The demand for the center's life-changing services was surging, and ensuring every patient received the compassionate care they deserved became more crucial than ever. Annie, Charles, Rebecca, and Michael knew they would need to unite their efforts like never before to rise to the occasion. One of their top priorities was expanding their team by hiring and training new staff members who shared their passion for making a difference. Annie and Charles took the lead in the hiring process, carefully seeking out individuals whose dedication matched their own. After conducting numerous interviews, they successfully built a diverse and talented group of physiotherapists, nurses, and support staff who were ready to serve. One bright morning, Annie gathered everyone in the new conference room for a welcome meeting. With a warm smile, she addressed the newly formed team. "I want to thank each of you for joining us on this journey. Together, we're here to change lives, and I can't wait to see the impact we'll make together." Charles, always eager to reinforce the importance of unity, chimed in with conviction, "Teamwork will be our greatest strength. Each of you brings something valuable to the table, and through collaboration, we can tackle any obstacle that comes our way." The meeting was filled with introductions, discussions about the center's expanded programs, and a strong emphasis on open communication and mutual support. Annie and Charles wanted every team member to feel valued, heard, and supported as they embarked on this collective mission. As the days passed, the team began to find their rhythm, working together harmoniously. The new aquatic therapy sessions quickly became a favorite among patients, and the noticeable improvements in their mobility were heartwarming. The pediatric wing buzzed with laughter as children embraced their therapies with joy and hope. Rebecca, always detail-oriented and committed to excellence, took charge of organizing regular workshops for staff development. She invited experts from various rehabilitation fields to share their knowledge and cutting-edge techniques. "It's vital that we continue learning and staying updated with the latest best practices," Rebecca said during one of the workshops. "This way, we can provide the highest level of care for our patients." Meanwhile, Michael, the center's biggest supporter and community leader, continued to play an integral role. He coordinated fundraising events and collaborated with local leaders to secure the resources necessary for the center's ongoing success. "This center represents the heart of our community," Michael passionately expressed during a town meeting. "We all must rally behind it to ensure its growth and future." One afternoon, as Annie was reviewing patient files in her office, Charles burst in, his face alight with excitement. "Annie, you won't believe it, we've been invited to present our work at a national rehabilitation conference. They want us to showcase our programs and the incredible results we've achieved." Annie's heart soared with pride. "That's amazing, Charles. This is our chance to not only celebrate our success, but also learn from other pioneers in our field." The team quickly made preparations, with Annie, Charles, and Rebecca pouring their energy into creating a compelling presentation. They compiled data, testimonials, and success stories that highlighted the center's impact on patients and the community alike. When the day of the conference arrived, the team, filled with anticipation, made their way to the city. Standing before a room full of peers, Annie felt a mix of nervousness and pride as she began to speak. "When I first arrived in this small town, I was in a place of desperation," she shared, her voice thick with emotion. "I never could have imagined that, with the support of this extraordinary community and a team full of heart, we would build something so impactful. The Hope Rehabilitation Center is a testament to the power of teamwork and resilience." If you're still tuned into this video and find the story inspiring, drop a 5 in the comments to let me know you're still with me. Charles and Rebecca followed with presentations on the center's innovative programs, and Michael spoke passionately about the profound positive effect the center had on the community. The audience responded with applause, and numerous attendees expressed interest in replicating the center's model elsewhere. After the conference, the team was inundated with offers of collaboration and glowing praise. It was a moment of immense validation and motivation, and as they journeyed back to town, Charles remarked with a glint in his eye, "This is just the beginning. There are so many more lives we can touch." Back at the center, the team wasted no time, continuing their work with renewed dedication. Annie and Charles worked closely to implement family therapy sessions as part of their new initiative to support patients' families. During one emotional session, a mother broke down in tears as she shared how the program had transformed her relationship with her son. "Before we came here, I didn't know how to help him or even talk to him. Now we're closer than ever, and I finally feel like I can truly support him," she said, her voice trembling. The words struck Annie and Charles deeply, reinforcing their belief in the work they were doing. "We're making a real difference," Annie whispered to Charles, "and that's what truly matters." As time passed, the bond between Annie and Charles deepened. Amid the busy days filled with responsibilities, they found moments to connect, share their dreams, and reflect on the incredible journey they were on together. Their love blossomed with every challenge they overcame, and with every success they celebrated. Meanwhile, Rebecca and Michael's relationship was evolving too. What started as a professional partnership had grown into a close friendship, and eventually feelings of admiration began to surface. One evening, over a quiet dinner at Michael's home, they shared laughter and heartfelt conversations, realizing just how much they appreciated one another. Their bond grew stronger with every shared moment, and they found solace in each other's company amidst the challenges of their work. At the center, the new programs continued to flourish. The Family Support Initiative proved to be an enormous success, with families expressing gratitude for the tools and strategies they learned to better assist their loved ones in recovery. One day, after an especially long day, Annie and Charles found themselves in the center's garden, admiring the flowers planted by patients, a beautiful symbol of growth and hope. "You know, Charles," Annie began thoughtfully, "it feels like we've achieved so much, but there's still so much more we can do." Charles nodded, his face full of admiration for her vision. "I've been thinking the same thing. Annie, how about we expand our programs even further? We could create specialized support for our patients' families, maybe workshops and therapy sessions designed just for them." Their shared vision became a reality as Annie, Charles, and Rebecca collaborated to bring the new program to life. As the center continued to thrive, the team's unwavering dedication and compassion shone through. Each day was a new opportunity to grow, to learn, and to make an even greater impact on the lives of those they served. The Hope Rehabilitation Center had truly become a beacon of light in the community, a place where hope, healing, and the power of human connection thrived. One morning, as Annie sat in her office poring over a stack of reports, her phone rang. It was Javier, one of the center's dedicated physiotherapists, with an urgent message. His voice was laced with concern as he explained the situation. "Annie, we've just received a new patient. It's a 17-year-old boy who was in a terrible motorcycle accident. His spinal injuries are severe, and the doctors have said his chances of recovery are slim," Javier explained, the weight of the news evident in his tone. Annie felt her stomach churn at the thought, but she quickly gathered her composure. This was the kind of challenge that reminded her why she started the center. "Javier, don't worry. We'll do everything in our power to help him. Set up a team meeting immediately so we can strategize his treatment plan." The boy, named Luis, arrived later that day, accompanied by his mother, who looked heartbroken and overwhelmed with worry. As Annie approached them, she wore a gentle smile, trying to ease their fear. "Hi, Luis, I'm Annie. We're going to be with you every step of the way during your recovery. I know this is difficult, but I promise you're not alone in this." Despite his pain, Luis met Annie's eyes with a glimmer of hope and nodded. "Thank you. I'll do my best," he said softly, his voice filled with determination. The center's entire team, led by Annie and Javier, immediately came together to devise an intensive rehabilitation plan for Luis. It involved daily physiotherapy sessions, aquatic therapy, and emotional counseling to address both his physical and mental health. Charles ensured that all of Luis's medical needs were met with the utmost care, while Rebecca worked closely with Luis's mother, providing emotional support and connecting her with community resources. As the weeks passed, Luis displayed a strength that astonished everyone. Though his progress was slow, each small achievement felt monumental. Every inch gained in movement and every step forward was celebrated as a major victory. One particularly emotional moment came during an aquatic therapy session. As Luis lay in the pool, surrounded by the support team, he managed to move his right leg for the first time since the accident. A collective gasp filled the room, followed by cheers and applause. Tears welled up in Annie's eyes as she stood at the edge of the pool, overwhelmed with emotion. "Luis, this is incredible. You're doing it," she said, her voice cracking with pride. Luis, though exhausted from the effort, smiled weakly. "I couldn't have done it without you all. Thank you for not giving up on me." Luis's case became a beacon of hope within the center, a living testament to the power of perseverance, teamwork, and the deep, life-changing impact of the Hope Rehabilitation Center. His courage inspired everyone, staff, patients, and the broader community to push through their challenges with renewed resolve. Meanwhile, the family support program Charles and Rebecca had implemented was flourishing. Families of patients attended workshops and therapy sessions, learning how to better support their loved ones, creating an even stronger sense of community. One day, while Rebecca was busy coordinating another successful workshop, Michael approached her with an exciting idea. "Rebecca, I've been thinking," he began. "What if we organized a community health fair? We could offer free services, educational workshops, and activities for families. It would help us reach more people and connect the community with vital resources." Rebecca's eyes lit up at the suggestion. "That's an amazing idea, Michael. It would be a great way to engage more people and give back." Without hesitation, they began planning the event, enlisting the help of Annie, Charles, and the entire team. On the day of the fair, the center was buzzing with activity. Health experts, therapists, and local organizations set up booths to offer services ranging from exercise demonstrations to nutrition workshops. Children ran through the gardens, playing games while their parents learned how to improve their health. As Annie walked among the booths, watching the joy and collaboration that filled the air, She felt a swell of pride and emotion. This is exactly what I envisioned when we started the Hope Rehabilitation Center, she thought. A place where the community could come together, support one another, and heal. Charles, who had been giving a physical therapy demonstration, approached Annie with a grin. "Look around, Annie. We've done something incredible here. This is what real impact looks like." Annie smiled back, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. "Yes, Charles, this is everything I hoped for. And it's all thanks to the dedication and heart of our team." The health fair was a massive success, and afterward many community members expressed their gratitude, requesting that more events like it be held in the future. The center continued to thrive, and everything seemed to be going smoothly. But as is often the case, life had other plans. One afternoon, while reviewing reports in her office, Annie's phone rang again, this time with an unexpected and unsettling call. It was Robert's lawyer. Robert, her estranged former partner, and his father had returned to town and wanted to discuss unresolved legal matters concerning her inheritance. "Annie, they're insisting on a meeting to clarify certain points about your inheritance," the lawyer said, his tone serious. Annie felt her chest tighten. She had known this confrontation might happen one day, but she wasn't ready to face it. Still, she resolved to handle it with the same strength she had applied to every challenge in her life. "Fine. Tell them we'll meet tomorrow at the center," she replied, keeping her voice steady despite the turmoil inside. The next day, Robert and his father arrived at the Hope Rehabilitation Center. Annie, determined to face them head-on, sat in the conference room with Charles, Rebecca, and Michael by her side. The tension in the room was palpable as the men sat across from her. Robert, looking uneasy, broke the silence. "Annie, I know things have been strained between us, but we're here to settle the inheritance issues. We believe it's time to resolve the matter once and for all." His father, with a cold and calculating gaze, added, "We want what's rightfully ours." Annie remained calm but firm. "You're mistaken if you think I'm just going to hand over what doesn't belong to you," she said, her voice unwavering. Robert's father, visibly angered, stood up abruptly. "You have no idea what we've sacrificed. We deserve that inheritance," he shouted, slamming his fist on the table. Before Annie could respond, Charles stood up, stepping between them. His posture was rigid, his expression stern. "Disrespect Annie again, and you'll regret it," he warned, his voice low and menacing. The room crackled with tension as the two men glared at each other, moments away from a physical altercation. But before things could escalate further, Robert intervened, pushing his father back. "Stop this madness," he shouted, his voice thick with emotion. "You forced me to leave Annie, and now you want to take something that was never yours to begin with. Enough is enough." His father stood stunned, clearly not expecting such defiance from his son. In that moment, Annie realized that no matter what challenges lay ahead, she had built a life and a community that was unshakable. The Hope Rehabilitation Center was not just a place of healing for its patients, it was a sanctuary for everyone who believed in the power of resilience, compassion, and unity. With a composed and steady voice, Annie addressed the room. "I understand you came here to discuss these matters, but let me be absolutely clear: this inheritance and the properties are not what truly matters to me. My priority has always been, and will always be, the well-being of the people who come to this center for help." Her words carried the weight of her dedication, and Charles, sensing the gravity of the moment, squeezed her hand in support. "Annie has built something remarkable here," he added, his voice firm. "This center has changed countless lives. We won't let anyone tear it apart." Rebecca, always eloquent and composed, stepped in, her voice ringing with determination. "We understand that there are legal matters to resolve, but you must know that Annie is not facing this alone. We are standing with her, and we will ensure justice is served." Michael, exuding the calm authority he carried as the town's mayor, spoke up as well. "This center is vital to our community. Any attempt to destabilize it or its mission will be met with resistance from the entire town. We won't stand by and let that happen." The room filled with tension as the legal discussions grew heated. Robert seemed to falter, but his father remained stubborn, pushing relentlessly to claim what he believed was rightfully his. Finally, Annie rose to her feet, her gaze locked on Robert. "Robert, I understand that you made mistakes, and I know your father has played a role in this. But I want you to understand that this center is my life now. It has given me a sense of purpose and hope, and I will not allow you, or anyone, to take that away from me." Her voice was calm yet resolute, cutting through the tension in the room. Robert, clearly moved by Annie's words, dropped his gaze, visibly conflicted. "Annie, I'm so sorry," he stammered. "I never wanted things to go this far. If this center means so much to you, I don't want to be the reason it's destroyed." His voice was filled with regret, and for the first time he looked defeated. His father, clearly frustrated, tried to interject, but Robert stopped him, his voice firmer now. "Dad, enough. We can't keep pushing this. It's gone too far." Seeing the sincerity in Robert's eyes, Annie felt a wave of relief wash over her. "Thank you, Robert. I hope you find your way and choose to make something meaningful of your life." With the situation resolved, Robert and his father left the center, leaving behind a room filled with a sense of triumph. The tension had lifted, and as Charles took Annie's hand again, he whispered, "I'm so proud of you, Annie. You were strong and graceful today." Tears of relief welled up in her eyes as she smiled. "I couldn't have done it without all of you," she said softly. "We're a team, and that's what makes us strong." As Robert and his father returned to the city, the weight of the encounter lingered in Robert's mind. That night, unable to sleep, he lay in bed, replaying every moment of the confrontation. Annie's words echoed in his thoughts, and he began to realize just how deeply his actions, driven by greed and his father's influence, had hurt someone he once cared for deeply. The next morning, Robert made a decision he needed to change. He couldn't continue down this destructive path. In the days that followed, Robert sought out therapy to address the issues that had led him to make such harmful choices. The more he reflected on his past, the more he realized that he wanted to do something positive with his life, something that could make a difference, just like Annie had. He wanted to right his wrongs. Back at the Hope Rehabilitation Center, life carried on. Annie, Charles, Rebecca, and Michael continued their work with unwavering dedication, always striving to improve the center's services. Each new day presented its challenges, but with every obstacle came new opportunities to make a difference. One day, Annie received an unexpected letter from Robert. With a sense of trepidation, she opened it. "Dear Annie, I hope you're doing well. I want to sincerely apologize for everything I put you through. I've come to realize the mistakes I made, and I've begun therapy to help me become a better person. You've always been an inspiration to me, and I've decided that I want to do something meaningful with my life. If you're open to it, I'd like to visit the center again, not to claim anything, but to offer my help in any way that I can. I want to be part of something good, something bigger than myself. Thank you for everything. With gratitude, Robert." If you're still tuned into this video and find the story inspiring, drop a 6 in the comments to let me know you're still with me. Annie read the letter carefully, her heart softening as she sensed the sincerity behind his words. She believed in second chances, especially for those who were genuinely trying to change. After discussing it with Charles, Rebecca, and Michael, they agreed to give Robert a chance to prove himself. Several weeks later, Robert returned to town, this time with a completely different attitude. He approached Annie and the team at the center, expressing his heartfelt gratitude and his desire to help. Cautiously optimistic, Annie welcomed him back and assigned him small tasks around the center to start. Robert threw himself into the work, assisting with administrative tasks and helping organize events. Over time, he showed genuine commitment to changing his ways. Even Charles, who had been skeptical at first, began to see the effort Robert was putting in. His once selfish and impulsive behavior was now replaced with a humble determination to make amends. Slowly but surely, Robert started earning back the trust of those around him. The team, united by the shared goal of helping others, found that even someone like Robert, once lost to greed, could find his way back to purpose and redemption. As Robert became more integrated into the daily workings of the center, he began to understand the depth of the impact it had on the community. He saw firsthand the lives that were transformed and the hope that was restored, and he felt proud to be a part of it. Annie, seeing this change, knew that the strength of the Hope Rehabilitation Center didn't just lie in its ability to heal bodies, but also in its power to heal hearts and minds. Through perseverance, forgiveness, and the unwavering support of a strong team, the center continued to thrive, a shining beacon of hope for all who sought a second chance. As the community event drew to a close, Charles approached Robert, his expression soft yet serious. "I know things haven't been easy, and I know you've done things you can't undo. But I see that you're trying to change, and I want to thank you for that. Your efforts haven't gone unnoticed." Robert, humbled by the acknowledgement, smiled gratefully. "Thank you, Charles. I'm determined to do things right this time, and I'll do whatever I can to support the center and its mission." The event had been a resounding success, and Robert's contributions were crucial in making it happen. Slowly but surely, the community began to view Robert differently. People who had once been skeptical now saw him as someone who was genuinely trying to redeem himself and make amends for his past actions. It wasn't easy, but Robert's persistence and humility were starting to pay off. Meanwhile, Annie and Charles continued to deepen their relationship, strengthening their bond both personally and professionally. Together, they faced the challenges of running the Hope Rehabilitation Center, working side by side to ensure its success. Rebecca and Michael remained steadfast pillars of support, always ready to jump in and help plan new projects or troubleshoot obstacles. The center had hit its stride, and the team was thriving, each success story inspiring them to keep pushing forward. However, as life often does, a new challenge was looming that would test the unity and strength of the entire team. One morning, as Annie and Charles were reviewing reports in the office, Rebecca rushed in, her face clouded with worry. "We've got a serious problem," she said, handing them a document. "I just received this from the town hall. There's been an anonymous complaint, claiming that the center isn't meeting certain safety standards." Annie, alarmed, took the document and quickly scanned it. "This can't be right. We've complied with all regulations," she said, shaking her head in disbelief. Charles frowned deeply. "It sounds like someone's trying to sabotage us, but who would do this?" Shortly after, Michael arrived, having been informed of the situation. "I reached out to my contacts at the town hall. It seems that someone's deliberately trying to stir up trouble for the center. We're going to need to prove that every accusation is false and fast." The team met to formulate a plan of action. They decided to conduct a thorough internal audit, double-check every regulation, and prepare a comprehensive report to present to the town hall. To everyone's surprise, Robert stepped up. "I know I'm not the most obvious choice to help here, but I want to. I can go through the files and make sure all the documentation is in order." Annie hesitated for a moment, but then nodded. "We'll need all the help we can get." "Thank you, Robert." The weeks that followed were exhausting. The team worked tirelessly, checking every document, inspecting the facility from top to bottom, and ensuring every regulation had been adhered to. The stress took its toll on everyone, and tempers occasionally flared. During one particularly heated meeting, Rebecca raised her voice, frustration evident. "We cannot afford any mistakes. Everything has to be flawless." Charles, visibly weary, replied, "We're all doing the best we can, Rebecca. We need to stay calm if we're going to get through this." Sensing the tension, Annie stepped in. "Look, I know we're all under immense pressure, but let's not forget we're in this together. This center is our home, and we're going to defend it with everything we've got." The situation came to a head when one morning, an unannounced inspection team arrived from the town hall. They scrutinized every detail of the center with unwavering thoroughness. Annie and the team accompanied the inspectors, answering questions and providing documentation at every turn. Robert, though nervous, presented the files he had painstakingly reviewed. "Here's everything you asked for. We've met every requirement," he said with quiet confidence. After several tense hours of inspection, the inspectors called a meeting. "We've completed our review," one of them said, "and we can confirm that the Hope Rehabilitation Center is fully compliant with all safety and operational standards." The complaints were, indeed, unfounded. Relief washed over the entire team. Annie, with tears of gratitude in her eyes, shook the inspector's hands. "Thank you for your time. This center means the world to us and the community." Charles, Rebecca, Michael, and Robert embraced, feeling both victorious and relieved. They had faced a serious threat, but their unity and determination had pulled them through. Later that night, the team gathered in the garden to celebrate. There was a palpable sense of camaraderie, the air thick with relief and accomplishment. Annie raised her glass, her voice filled with emotion. "Today we proved that together we are stronger than any challenge that comes our way. Thank you all for your hard work, your dedication, and your unwavering support. The Hope Rehabilitation Center stands because of every one of you." Robert, clearly moved, spoke next. "I just want to say thank you. Thank you for giving me a second chance, and for trusting me when you didn't have to. I promise I'll keep doing everything I can to help this center grow." The night continued with laughter, stories, and a deep sense of accomplishment. This challenge had only strengthened their resolve and their bond. But even as life at the center returned to its normal rhythm, Annie found herself reflecting on the future. The recent events had reminded her of the fragility of their work and the need to secure its long-term sustainability. One afternoon, Annie received an unexpected call from a major international rehabilitation organization. They had heard of the center's success and were interested in replicating its model in other parts of the world. They wanted Annie to join their team as a consultant, offering her the chance to expand the center's impact on a global scale. It was an incredible opportunity, but it would also mean leaving the center she had worked so hard to build and the people she had grown to love. Conflicted, Annie gathered her team, Charles, Rebecca, and Michael, and shared the news. "I've received an offer from an international organization," she began. "They want me to help replicate the Hope Rehabilitation Center's model across the world." Charles looked surprised. "Does that mean you'd have to leave the center?" he asked. Annie nodded, a mixture of excitement and uncertainty in her eyes. "Yes, it would mean traveling and being away for extended periods, but it's an amazing opportunity to help more people." Rebecca, always pragmatic, weighed in. "Annie, this is an incredible opportunity, but we also have to think about what it means for the center here. We've built something special, and we need to ensure it stays strong." Michael, as calm and steady as ever, offered a suggestion. "Maybe you don't have to choose. You could take on the consulting role while we continue managing the center. We can build a solid team to handle the day-to-day operations, so everything runs smoothly in your absence." Annie considered their words. It was a crossroads moment, one that would require careful thought and planning. But one thing was certain: the Hope Rehabilitation Center, with its team of dedicated and passionate people, was stronger than ever, and no matter what path she chose, its legacy would continue. Annie smiled, overwhelmed with gratitude as she looked out at the crowd. The journey had been long and full of challenges, but it had also been deeply rewarding. "This center is not just a place of healing for the body," she continued, her voice brimming with emotion. "It's a place where people come to heal their hearts and minds, where second chances are given, and where hope thrives." The audience, captivated by her words, applauded again. Annie could feel the energy and love in the air. She turned to Charles, Rebecca, and Michael, giving each of them a look filled with appreciation. "Charles," she said, meeting his eyes, "your unwavering support has been my strength through everything. Rebecca, your attention to detail and commitment to excellence have kept this center running smoothly. And Michael, your leadership and dedication to the community have been invaluable. I couldn't ask for a better team." She then looked at Robert, who stood a bit apart, watching quietly. His journey had been one of redemption, and seeing him now, fully integrated into the team, made Annie's heart swell with pride. "Robert," she said, her voice soft but firm, "you've proven that change is not only possible but transformative. Your hard work and dedication have made a real difference here, and for that, I thank you." Robert visibly moved and nodded as the applause swelled around him. He had come a long way, and the acceptance he now felt from the community was the greatest reward he could have imagined. "Thank you, Annie," he said, his voice shaky with emotion. "This center, and all of you, have given me a second chance, and I'll spend the rest of my life trying to live up to that." As the speeches wrapped up, the celebration continued late into the night. People danced, shared stories of recovery, and connected in ways that reaffirmed the power of community. The Hope Rehabilitation Center had become more than just a facility. It was the beating heart of the town, a place where people found not just healing, but purpose. As the evening drew to a close, Annie and Charles found a quiet moment together, standing under the stars in the center's garden. "You've done something incredible here," Anna, Charles said, wrapping his arm around her. "This place, it's a testament to everything you've worked for. And I'm proud to be by your side through it all." Annie leaned into him, feeling at peace. "We've done this together," she corrected him softly. "All of us. This center is a reflection of everyone who has been part of it, every patient, every staff member, every member of the community. It's bigger than any one of us." Charles smiled, pressing a kiss to her forehead, "and it will continue to grow, just like us." The following year, the Hope Rehabilitation Center continued to flourish. Annie had found the perfect balance between her international work and her role at the center. Her travels brought new insights and innovations which she integrated into the center's practices, further enriching the care they provided. The local team, led by Rebecca, Charles, Michael, and Robert, operated smoothly, with each member taking on new responsibilities as the center expanded its reach. The center's impact extended far beyond its walls. Annie's work on a global scale helped establish similar facilities in underserved regions, replicating the model of community-centered care and holistic rehabilitation. The story of the Hope Rehabilitation Center became a beacon of hope, inspiring others to believe in the power of perseverance, teamwork, and second chances. If you're still tuned into this video and find the story inspiring, Drop a 7 in the comments to let me know you're still with me. As the years passed, the center became known not just for the lives it saved, but for the spirit it embodied, a spirit of resilience, love, and unwavering hope. Annie knew that, no matter where life took her, the Hope Rehabilitation Center would always be her home, her legacy, and a place where countless more lives would be touched, healed, and forever changed. Charles gently held Annie's hand and spoke with emotion. "We've truly come a long way, Annie. We've faced countless challenges, celebrated meaningful victories, and created something extraordinary. I'm grateful for every moment we've shared, and I'm excited for what the future holds for us." Rebecca, always the practical organizer, smiled warmly and chimed in. "This center is living proof of what collaboration and perseverance can achieve. We've built something beautiful together, and will continue to make this world a better place." Michael, his usual calm and composed self, stepped forward to close the speeches. "As mayor, I've seen firsthand the transformative impact this center has had on our community. It has become a pillar of hope, and I'm honored to support its mission and be part of this family." The evening flowed with laughter, music, and heartwarming stories. Patients shared tales of their recovery journeys, and families expressed their deepest gratitude for the love and support they had found at the center. It was a night of celebration, reflection, and looking toward the future with renewed hope and determination. Later, as the festivities wound down, Annie and Charles strolled through the tranquil garden of the center. The soft glow of the moonlight illuminated their path as Annie paused to gaze up at the stars. "Charles," she whispered, "I never imagined we'd come this far. This center, it's so much more than just a place of rehabilitation. It's a home, a family." Charles wrapped his arms around her, pulling her close. "Annie, we've created something remarkable here. The best part is we've done it together. I can't wait to see what else the future holds for us." Annie smiled up at him, feeling a profound sense of peace and fulfillment. "Together we can achieve anything," she said, her voice full of certainty. As the years passed, the Hope Rehabilitation Center continued to thrive. Annie and her team found a perfect balance between their personal lives and their commitment to the center. Annie remained involved as an international consultant, helping to establish rehabilitation centers across the globe, while always staying connected to her roots at the Hope Center. Each return was a joyful reunion with her team, and seeing the ongoing positive impact filled her with pride. Charles remained her unwavering support, standing by her through every endeavor. Their bond grew stronger with each passing day, their shared vision of making the world a better place driving them forward. Rebecca and Michael, too, nurtured their relationship while continuing to contribute to the center's growth. Their love, dedication, and mutual support served as an inspiration to everyone around them. In time, the Hope Rehabilitation Center expanded further, becoming a global model for other centers dedicated to healing and hope. Annie's original vision had blossomed into a worldwide movement, and the center became synonymous with compassion, resilience, and second chances. Annie, Charles, Rebecca, and Michael remained united, their relationship strengthened by the many experiences they had shared and the obstacles they had overcome. Together, they proved that with love, dedication, and collaboration, no dream was too big and no challenge too great. Eventually, Annie made the bittersweet decision to retire from her active role at the center. She entrusted its leadership to a new generation of passionate individuals, ensuring that the center would continue to flourish for years to come. Although she stepped back, Annie's spirit and guiding vision lived on, shaping the center's bright and hopeful future. In her later years, surrounded by family, friends, and the team she had helped build, Annie reflected on the incredible journey she had taken. Every challenge, every triumph, had led to a legacy she could be proud of, a legacy rooted in hope, healing, and love. The story of Annie and the Hope Rehabilitation Center became a testament to the power of human resilience and the incredible capacity for transformation in the face of adversity. Annie had found her purpose, and through her, countless lives had been touched and forever changed. As we come to the end of this incredible journey through the story of Annie and the Hope Rehabilitation Center, we're reminded of the power of love, perseverance, and the importance of second chances. What stood out to you the most? What lesson or message will you carry forward into your own life? We'd love to hear from you, so please comment below with one thing you've learned from this story and how you plan to apply it in your life. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave your comment below. And please remember to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. By doing so, you'll help us spread these inspiring stories and continue making a difference. Thank you for watching.